Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Now the goal here is pretty straightforward. I'd like to do in-depth video game reviews focusing on objective qualities found in gaming to establish whether a game is really good or bad. Now, by definition, being objective means to be unemotional, not getting agitated or distressed in any way, to see things as they really are, not from a personally biased viewpoint, and to be neutral, an understanding of both points of view, right? So now, in order to do this, what I want to establish is the baselines of what makes a game good or bad, right? What am I judging? What am I looking for when I'm playing a title that leads me to believe a game is good or bad, right? Now, these do a couple of things. One is it allows you some assurance that I'm not judging my gameplay or basing my decisions completely off my opinion, right? I'm building off of this predetermined set of rules that I'll be governing to based on my decisions, right? If you want to know what my thoughts and feelings are, these will be in the videos as well. They're just not going to determine what the score of a game is at the outset. The second is this also establishes what my actual rating system is going to be. Now, I'll be splitting all the games that I play into two categories, right? We'll have gameplay focused titles and we'll have narrative focused titles. Gameplay focused titles are things like Destiny, where the narrative exists, and in Destiny's case, it's actually quite good, but they're not the focus. It's the focus of a gameplay title is to play it, right? It's to build a loop that's satisfying that you want to keep engaging with. You want to keep farming for that legendary. You really, really want that perfect item drop. You want to go and do the dungeons. You want that in-game content, right? A narrative-focused game is things like Dragon Age Origins or Knights of the Old Republic, where the end game doesn't really exist so much as you just keep recreating your characters or keep playing through as the same character and experiencing different decisions, seeing what kind of outcomes happen within the universe depending on what decisions you make. Now, I'll split all the reviews into two parts, right? The first part will discuss the merits of these games based on the baselines I established in this video. And the second part will be my opinion on it. And like I said, my opinions will not play into the score that I give the game. They're simply there as a reference point to maybe you think like I do and you just want to have fun, or maybe you want something competitive and it's super balanced. And knowing that this game just has weird, wacky, fun elements is going to turn you off it. And that's great, but those are things that you should know before I give a review or rating of any game, right? So to start off with, I'm going to discuss what my baselines will be on gameplay-focused titles. So games that fall into this category are things like looter shooters and horde shooters or horde-slaying titles. Most multiplayer first-person shooter titles like COD or Battlefield, and some roguelikes, right? And these things, they focus on a satisfying and engaging gameplay loop over a compelling narrative to draw the player into the world and work towards completion. As such, the categories that I'll be judging these games on are the loop, right? So the first thing is always going to be the loop. It's the focus of it, the core gameplay loop. What are you doing? What is the primary goal? How much or how little of it is related to progression? And objectively, a good gameplay loop should be satisfying. It should remain fresh and it should build upon the skills that you're given throughout the game and allow for expression, for simple player expression. If you're good at a game, you should be able to show that you're good at it via playing it, through to the decisions you make or through the way you move or the abilities you use and things like that. And those all come into the loop. Right? The second category in gameplay focused titles are going to be the enemies, right? What are you fighting? Are they unique? Does the difficulty scale well in terms of your abilities as a player? As you improve, does the game get more difficult or less difficult? How far can you get once you've mastered key elements of the loop? And how do bosses function within it? Do they add new and interesting mechanics, or do they just get tankier? Do they just have more health? Do they just take more time? Objectively speaking, they should be varied and they should require different strategies to combat, and they should encourage the use of the skills that you've picked up within the game in tandem with the loop to improve the overall satisfaction, right? They should build upon your skills. They should force you as the player to react to situations and scenarios and play the game. That's what they should do, right? Now, number three is the environment. Where? The environment of a gameplay focused title is very important. Like, how interesting are the locations are you battling in? Do enemies change within different biomes? Do you need to change your strategies? Do you need different skills, or do you need to utilize different things in order to progress through different environments? It should also build upon the loop. It should increase the variation in the game and keep that element of freshness within the title. It should constantly keep you wanting to experience the next thing, wanting to go to that next room. Just want to see what's next. I just want to see what's next. Maybe there's a new monster. Maybe there's a new weapon. These are things that a gameplay focused title, that's how it's going to grab you, right? Secrets, Easter eggs, all of these little things, they add those little elements that just make the game just slightly more interesting and just a little bit more engaging. They just want to keep you there and playing that a little bit longer. Now, bonus points for gameplay focused titles will be things like the narrative. Is it there at all? Is there even a narrative, or is it simply just play the game? In some cases, narratives will be really, really good. In some places, they'll be really, really bad. But because it's not the core focus of the game, the narrative adds bonus points. If it's good, it will add bonus points. If it is really bad, it will take points away. But if it's just there and it doesn't really do anything or make any statements, I'm not going to take or give points for it, right? If it's solely there to propel the loop, that's fine, right? The second thing that I would add is soundtrack, right? What is the soundtrack? How good is it? Does it get you pumped up when you're fighting the action sequences? Does it make you want to explore? Is it just mind-numbingly annoying? These are things that can add and detract points as well. And finally, it's graphics, right? It's style dependent, but there I will talk about graphics in a gameplay focused zones because if you say to me that you're going to make a hyper realistic first person shooter and then you've got characters sliding 300 feet and throwing knives with the power of Zeus, you're not doing hyperrealism. You're doing something, but it's definitely not hyperrealism. Same thing with cel shaded graphics types, cartoonish, anime stylist. Like all of these things have styles, and you can make them crisp, you can make them clean, you can make it look good. Whilst it won't necessarily always take points away, it will occasionally add points if it's done in a really unique or interesting way. All right. In terms of the point system themselves, what I'll be doing is for each of these categories, they'll be given a 1 to 5 rating. So the loop will get a 1 to 5, the enemies will get a 1 to 5, and the environment will get a 1 to 5, right? The narrative will add a potential extra point or 0.5 points. The soundtrack will also add 0.5 or 1 point, and the graphics will add either 0.5 or 1 point, or they will take away the same amounts. Basically, at the end of this, if all three are 5 out of 5, you've got effectively a perfect game based on these baselines. And I'll discuss a bit my opinions as to why I give those decisions or made those decisions in the next segments, but that would give you an idea of how the rating system is going to be. Moving on from there, we've got narrative titles, right? Now, narrative titles are things like your RPGs. They're your adventure games. They're your story-driven sandbox games like Horizon Zero Dawn. These games focus on establishing characters or worlds that you care about enough to continue playing the game. And this can be accomplished in a myriad of ways. It can be revenge, it can be romance, hope, despair. These are emotions and they're driving factors as to why we should care about these characters and want to complete their stories and experience them, right? So the primary category is the narrative itself. In a narrative game, it'd be about as useful as a brick in the ocean if I didn't discuss the narrative, right? It's the whole functionality of the game and it focuses on it. Now, unlike gameplay titles, a narrative is a lot less tangible. Looking at a narrative story unemotionally in order to be objective is inherently more difficult as it's designed to elicit emotion. It's one of the core factors of the game type. Now, to establish my baseline talking points, I'd be focused on what elements of the narrative have to be there in order for the game to function or elicit these emotions. How does it go about setting up your care factor, and does it do it well or poorly? Do I actually give a shit if a character dies or if a decision I make affects another character in the game? That's basically how I would have to break that down. Now, the second category for this is the characters, right? The characters are the most integral part of a narrative experience. If you don't care about the individuals, it's unlikely you'll want to play the game. And the universe will occasionally substitute for characters, but overwhelmingly when you play a narrative game, you're playing it because you're interested in the person you're playing as or the character you're creating, right? And objectively breaking this down is just going to be a matter of focusing on the arc. What is the purpose of the character's journey? What do they learn? Or what do they gain through their journey, and what experiences do they what experience do they have, and how does it change their outlook? Do they go from happy-go-lucky, overly positive, everything is sunshine and rainbows to maybe more jaded? Or do they go from jaded into believing in hope? Do they finally come out of despair and break through some mental health issues? These are all elements that can happen within a character arc that would make it good or bad, right? Lastly, or thirdly for this one, the universe, right? So, as mentioned above, sometimes the universe itself takes the place of a character. You care about more about what's going on around you and you want to fix it or explore more of it. Or in this instance, the universe becomes the focal point of the narrative itself. The universe drives the player through the game, right? The universe being used in this role would be judged by its uniqueness and its expansiveness. What elements make it move, how are they presented and explained to you, and how does your interaction with the universe affect it as a whole? What does it change? What decisions that you make change the universe, right? A really good example of a title that utilizes this very well, depending on who you are, is Dark Souls, right? Dark Souls is a universe is the character. Your character is sort of this no-name prophecy entity, but you're not even really 100% sure that you are the creature in this prophecy that it establishes at the start. And all these characters are moving around and being interested in trying to solve problems, but at the end of the day, they don't know if they're the chosen one or you're the chosen one. And so the universe itself is this bleak, ridiculous, despair-ridden landscape where everything's kind of gone to shit, and you have the choice whether or not you're going to fix it and solve these problems, or you leave it alone. And depending on how much you care about that universe, it will depend on what decision you make. Now, lastly, and this will go in part for both categories, but it is going to be a more focus on narrative titles, is the plot. Right? Now, the plot is tied in with characters and universes. It serves as a propellant, and depending on execution, or the stakes it introduces and the obstacles in front of the player, it either distracts or improves the overall narrative experience or the gameplay experience, right? If you don't care about your enemies and you don't really feel the need to be killing them, then it's going to take away from the experience. If they're really, really annoying and you really hate them, Joffrey from Game of Thrones is an example, then you're going to be happy when they die. And you're going to want to propel that story forward and finish that off, right? Overall, it should always be attempting to propel the primary focus of the game. If it's characters, the plot should be propelling the characters. If it's the universe, the plot should affect the universe. And that's how I would judge the game. What does the plot do in order to make the rest of the game function? And does it take away or add to the experiences that you're having as a player regarding your characters that you're interacting with, right? So, look, that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed so far. I hope you understand what I'm sort of getting at and what I'm trying to go for with the content that I'll be creating on the channel. From here, the overall flow of the videos here will be, I'll be live streaming my playthroughs for games that I'm going to review on Twitch under Grand Theft Gaming Live. So if you wanted to, the link's in the description. Feel free to go over, drop that a follow so you can watch me play through a game live. You can see my live reactions, see whether or not I'm going to give a game good or bad ratings potentially based on that. If not, obviously, they will then cut up and make an actual full in-depth review guide, which will discuss these baselines. It will judge them based off the merits of these baselines that I've just established. And then I'll move into my thoughts on the process and things like that. If you enjoyed this video, or if you disagree or agree with any of the points I've made, feel free to leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and, like algorithm gang it up a bit for me. But if you don't want to do that, that's perfectly fine. Outside of that, I hope you're all staying safe in the weird and wonderful COVID world, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.